Hi, I'm Zaina, and this is my husband Chad. We've been traveling the U.S. for over 2 years now in our self-built tiny home on wheels with our 2 cats. Recently, we found out we're bringing one more on board. Stay tuned and subscribe if you want to join the adventure.
All right, yo.
I
think I'm gonna start using a bad fake British accent.
Stick to the script, baby.
Hey, friends.
Hello, guys. We are coming at you today from my parents' Sprinter van conversion. This is a new setting.
Yeah.
But
trying it on for size.
Exactly. In this video, we want to talk about the 4 different conversions that we have lived and traveled in for the past 2 years. We lived and traveled in a step van conversion in and around Colorado, which was our first one. The second one was a Thomas school bus conversion that we traveled the entire country in. The third one was a really short shuttle bus conversion in Maui, Hawaii. And the fourth one is our current vehicle, which is a church bus that we drove across the country deep into the Rocky Mountains in.
So we're going to talk to you guys individually about the lessons we've learned traveling and living full-time in each one of those vehicles. So let's take it all the way back to before Living Zeal was even a thing, to the step van that I lived in when I met you.
Yeah.
Actually, I was finishing it when I met you. So
yeah.
We technically built our conversions side by side. It was awesome. I was really excited when I purchased it, and I was originally looking for a bus. I started looking into stealth camping and what I might need to do with what I was trying to do, which was actually, at the time, I was trying to be a traveling photographer. So I wanted something I could probably stealth camp in and travel all over the country and work out of as well. So the step van was awesome for a lot of reasons that really filled that quota. And the main one was security and stealth.
Totally.
You couldn't get into that thing no matter how hard you tried. It was a retired USPS mail truck. So if you get an opportunity and you're looking for a step van, that's really the best of the best. I know a lot of people do the U-Hauls, which are also very secure and very stealthy. But this one in particular was awesome.
We actually had a friend whose Sprinter van conversion was broken into in the Colorado mountains somewhere through his fantastic van. And we've heard tons of stories of people on YouTube getting their vans and buses broken into. And I will say that was by far the most secure vehicle of all of them.
It was crazy how secure it is. It had locks that just, like, you hear the locks. It was kind of like prison-esque a little bit, even whenever it locked, it locked all over. Because it delivered mail, so.
Yeah.
I'd say that was the best thing about it, but at the end of the day, it was a big, stupid Chevy diesel engine.
Yeah.
And it started acting up on me really not that long after I had it. And there ended up being a seal ended up going, and like we got like oil mixed in the coolant, so then everything was screwed up. And
yeah, it was a whole mess. It was going to be, I think, like $3,500 to get it repaired. So yeah, that was a bummer.
So that actually, a little bit of information about us. We've done everything. We've done all of these conversions based off of one infusion of cash from selling Zaina's Prius that she bought with cash.
Yeah, so I had a 2013 Prius that I think I sold for like $13,000 or $14,000, and we have used that same initial investment from that Prius to buy the bus conversion. Then when we sold that, we used that to buy the next one, and when we sold that, we used that to buy the next one. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. The demand is so high in this niche, and that you get to kind of move your investments because the demand is so high for people looking for conversions to live out of.
However, I will say that must have been like a blessed sum of money. The Prius cash must have been blessed, because the step van conversion was the only one out of all of the conversions that we've built and sold that I totally lost money on.
Yeah.
But that was my money. That wasn't part of the Prius money. And that was because, I bought it and it started falling apart, and I sold it for literally half of what I paid for it to somebody who was going to turn it into a food truck. Yeah,
exactly. But the other thing about that conversion is Chad had a cat then, and I think that was a really traumatic kind of experience for Pixel, your cat, because
she hated it. It was so loud.
The engine was really loud, and we took it on a couple trips up into the mountains, and it was just, not only was it loud, but the drive itself was just atrocious. Like,
it drives like a 1950s milk truck.
Yeah.
Like, it's just all over the place. It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
The other really good thing that we loved about Stepman conversions, and I kind of feel like they're a little underrated in this lifestyle, is the back. So you can still be stealth, back up into a spot, and then have that huge, massive lift up that comes off. Chad actually put in 2 French doors. So it was just really pretty, let in a ton of light, but it didn't have any windows in there. So when it was closed, it felt a little dungeony.
I tried to put a lot of lights in, and I had like color changing lights and accent lighting, but I just loved pulling up to spots and opening up the back and still being stealthy.
Yeah.
But having that massive view out the back wherever you were. A lot of times it'd be at trailheads or something.
Yeah. So I think that if you have a lot of really expensive equipment and you're wanting to get something a little bit smaller than a bus, a Stepman conversion is an awesome option, especially if you make sure that you're getting one that's in good running condition, which unfortunately, like with any vehicle, you never really know. Unless you're a mechanic and are buying vehicles.
Even if you're a mechanic, you don't see inside the engine. You don't know if somebody's turned off the check engine light and there's actually something wrong with it. You know, you have no idea. You really don't know what you're getting yourself into. But I will say, step vans, if you're looking into a conversion, step vans are highly underrated. And I think if I had a chance to do a step van again, I would do a step van again.
Yeah.
I think they're really cool.
They're cool. I probably wouldn't because of the lack of windows, but they're cool. Okay, moving on to the next conversion. So our next one was our short school bus, Thomas school bus. I bought this before Chad and I were together, like right before we were together, and it had a 7.3 turbo diesel engine. I didn't know anything about any of this, so I kind of lucked out with that one. The biggest problem with that bus is that it was a 94. The suspension was really not great in it, and I kind of made the decision to buy that bus a little hastily because my rent in my apartment was I only had a couple months.
It's also super cute. It's a super cute bus.
But honestly, that was the only bus I looked at. So I looked at that bus.
That's a hard bus to find. Like if you look now, we didn't realize. I mean, Zaina certainly didn't realize that she was buying it. Just what a gem she was getting. But I mean, you got a Thomas International T444 turbo diesel, a great little bus. That thing was awesome.
It was.
It definitely, like you said though, it was 20 some years old. So like the brakes were going out. It had it had a very old suspension.
It needed to have a lot of updates on it. But it was an awesome vehicle, and it was already stripped out when I bought it because the people I bought it from were planning on using it for a little camper van, weekend camper van. So it was already a bit started. It did have significant rust damage, which if you've been kind of Googling this or researching this on YouTube for a while, you know that rust damage is very, very, very prevalent in school buses, depending on what part of the country you're buying them from. This particular bus I bought in Colorado, but it was from Alabama, so it did have some significant rust that we treated a little bit of, but some of it we just let it go. Basically.
And we got mice in the bus, and I'm sure that we got them in some places we got them in through rust holes. Yeah.
So the one downside with doing a bus is, among a couple other things, is the gas mileage was really, really low. So we used this bus to go on a big trip called West Coast Wandering. We'll put the playlist up right now if you want to check that out. But yeah, we got about like 9, honestly, like I would say 8 to 10
8 to 10 miles per
gallon.
Now, the thing about that, though, is the reason we got into this lifestyle in the first place was because we were both paying a lot in rent.
Yeah.
So we were like, all right, we can save a ton of money, move into a bus, and we'll get to travel. And that was the big thing, is like, we get to live in a vehicle and you get to travel and save money. And like, heck yeah, you travel and save money. In a bus, you don't travel and save money. No. It doesn't work like that.
Because gas is so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, at that price, it took us to drive from Pennsylvania to Colorado. It took us about $400 at 10 miles to the gallon. So if you're trying to make a whole trip, it's going to be a few $1,000s in just gas.
So the bus was my first real conversion vehicle, and I was coming from living in an apartment where I had accumulated a good deal of stuff. I wasn't like a shopaholic by any means, but I had accumulated a lot of furniture, a lot of clothes, toys for my cats, that kind of stuff. So I think that I'd never even really considered van life, like living in a Sprinter van or a Dodge ProMaster or a Transit, because I thought that I just had too much stuff and I couldn't really wrap my mind around going from my like 800 square feet apartment down into such a tiny, tiny little space. I think this Sprinter van is like some 60 square feet. So I just couldn't really wrap my mind around it. Although in the 2 years we've been living this lifestyle, it's been easier and easier to get rid of things. I think that at this stage in the game, we're like hard and true minimalists. We really don't have attachments to any of our possessions unless they add a lot of value to our life, like our camera, our laptop to edit videos, things that have a very direct contribution to our life. But at the time, I just couldn't imagine it. So moving into Thomas was the next sort of reasonable step from an apartment into a school bus where I had lots of space, high ceilings, I had the length that I wanted, but it was really hard to take that thing around town. And if you live in a school bus conversion, they are like magnets for attention.
People loved it. It was
People
awesome.
loved it. People hated it.
Or people hated it, actually.
Yeah.
Very true. Because we had people that would either be taking pictures of it, like coming up to it, or calling the cops because they're like, there's a school bus with lights on or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think that when people see school buses out and about, obviously you have to take off the stop sign, and a lot of times you get them painted so they don't look yellow like a school bus. But people pretty much know that you're using that for recreational purposes. Whereas in a van like this, my stepdad takes this to drive to work, and then they also take it for recreational activities into the mountains or down to Mexico, wherever. But you, as an outsider, you can't really tell like what the intended purpose is for this vehicle. And that's why vans are so popular, for that stealth ability that you cannot get in a bus.
We learned pretty quickly, there's videos about it, that bus life is for BLM land and campgrounds.
Yeah.
It's not for trying to camp in the city or, stay in whatever. You
Tried it.
Just don't. You can't.
Don't do
You'll
that.
stick out like a sore thumb, and you'll see the cops more than you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Thomas, we did love Thomas. It was probably our favorite conversion, I think, out of all of them. It felt most like home.
Yeah.
It was the most complete.
That was kind of the main reason that we had put the most amount of like work and money into that bus. It's been a slow decline for all of our vehicles since then on what we felt like we could live without. And because we make money online, we're entrepreneurs, we're kind of going at it for the first time this past 2 years trying to work for ourselves. Being new business owners, you don't make as much money as we made when we were just working for someone else. We make, a fraction right now, 2 years into our business, as we made right before we left and were working at restaurant jobs. So I would really recommend something that I'm constantly reminding myself about is be patient and save until you really have enough money to do the conversion that you really want to do. Because we've cut corners and it's just affected our happiness and the ability for us to enjoy this lifestyle. And I think going forward into the future with any other conversions we do or anything else, it's so much better to take the time and really get your budget in gear instead of just jumping into it and having to cut costs and cut corners.
Exactly.
In Thomas, we had a really beefy solar setup that we saved for, and it was everything that we needed. And since then, we've kind of like downgraded our solar setups to like, what can we get by with?
Let's move to the Hawaii bus, because that one we didn't have solar at all.
Okay, that takes us to our next bus, our short, the smallest vehicle we've lived in, our short shuttle bus conversion in Hawaii.
Thing was tiny.
So
honestly,
tiny.
we'd pull up next to Sprinter vans and they'd be longer than us, the big ones. It was crazy how small it was. We actually purchased this one before we moved there. Someone bought it for us, and it had a crazy amount of miles on it, 400,000 miles.
Yeah.
On a gas engine, but it didn't let us down. It was fleet maintained, and it drove to Hana every day, which is like one of the craziest highways, craziest roads we've ever been on. And I would never take this bus on Hana myself, but some brave soul, drove it to Hana 3 times a day, I believe they said, back and forth, which is crazy. So
it had service records and everything and had been really well maintained. It drove great. The entire time we had that bus, we didn't have any issues with it mechanically. The thing we loved about it so much was that we had a seat up front for both of us, so it really felt like we were just like in a van, being able to travel and road trip together. And also because it was a gas engine, it was extremely quiet, so we could watch Netflix on our road trips or listen to a podcast or music. And having our 2 little cats in the back, it was a much smoother ride for them because the engine wasn't so loud and intimidating and scary sounding.
it was also easy to zip around places, pull into parking spaces. But at the same time, the lack of space had a huge downside. The biggest thing I think we learned with this vehicle was, well, when we first got it, we lived in a condo in Maui, and we're able to come up and build the bus at our leisure and sort of start to put it together. And then we moved into the bus after a little while, and it definitely wasn't done. It was like maybe a quarter done. So then we
didn't have solar, and we didn't have running water.
No, we had an extension cord though, going to the main house there. And we were living in the bus, but we were sort of building it as we went along. And then we took the bus down and sort of lived full-time all over the island. And we tried to live out of this thing. Really, it's so much easier to call it a van because it was so small. It felt like a van. It felt so small. And without any of those creature comforts, it was really not fun.
It was tough. Yeah, and being in Hawaii, it was quite hot. We didn't have like a max air fan or a fantastic fan. At that stage in the game, things are pretty expensive to order off of Amazon to Maui. So we were a little bit more cautious with the things that we purchased for it. But that goes back to my earlier point about like it would have been better to just save for the items that we needed and just do it right, so to speak, than kind of try to... I don't think there's anything wrong with being honest with yourself and saying like, hey, I need these certain things. Because Chad's always saying, I could just live in the back of a little tiny van and be totally fine. And I'm like, I want solar, I want running water, I want it to feel like home. And I don't think there's anything wrong with kind of being honest with yourself and what your needs are so that you can really enjoy it to the fullest to its fullest potential. The other thing about that tiny shuttle bus is that because it was gas was obviously a gas engine. Gas was much cheaper than diesel would have been. But the catch-22 to that situation is we were living in Hawaii, so gas was actually just super expensive.
It's like $4.25
anywhere more than diesel is even here. But it did get better gas mileage. I think it got almost 15 miles to the gallon, which was the highest we had ever seen in any of our previous conversion vehicles. Yeah. The other little thing I'll say about that is it did feel a bit tight in there. I think, we thought a lot about the storage and the layout of it before we moved into it, and it's kind of hard to fully wrap your mind around what you want it to be like until you're actually in there. So I think that if I were to go back and do that bus again, we would incorporate much more storage so that we wouldn't have things kind of laying out, because it can start to feel really claustrophobic, for me at least, when you're in a small space already and then everything doesn't have its own spot, and then you kind of just have like cluttered crap everywhere. It starts to feel like the world is closing in on you. So storage is key, and it can be done. Even in a van like this, they have overheads all the way around, and it's organized well. So that's something to consider, is like go over your layout once, twice, 3, 5 times. Make sure that it's going to meet all of your needs.
Totally.
The last thing that we loved about that short shuttle bus conversion was that it had the huge wraparound windows. And being in a place like Maui, you want to see everything. It's so captivatingly beautiful everywhere you look. So that was really awesome, and we fell in love with sort of the shuttle bus style windows over the shorter school bus windows because of that bus, which I think is what informed our decision to buy our next conversion when we came back from Hawaii, which was a church shuttle bus.
Yeah.
When we were done living in Hawaii, decided that we wanted to come back to the mainland to start a family. We were staying with Chad's parents and we're looking for our next conversion vehicle. So we were considering all the same things we've been sharing thus far in today's video, trying to nail down and kind of considering everything. We went and looked at a long school bus. We looked at a mid-sized school bus. We looked at a Sprinter van, a Ford Transit. Like, we really tried to figure out what is the next step for us. And ultimately, we decided to go with our church shuttle bus.
Yes.
What can we say?
We feel like, I mean, looking back on it, I feel like maybe we were a little bit hasty making the decision. Our mechanic couldn't come with us that day, and I feel like when he finally did look at it, he was a little surprised that we bought it.
Yeah.
It actually broke down on the way home.
Yeah.
I was driving it. The gas gauge wasn't right, and it ran out of gas. So I had to get it towed literally the day we bought it. And that was kind of an omen. I was like, oh no.
What just happened?
What have we done? Like, we wanted this vehicle, but we wanted it to be perfect. And for the price, you can't always expect that. So be very careful. Don't ever rush in. If you see something that seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
because once we got it back, once we stripped it down and took everything apart, we ripped apart the ceiling and the floor and everything, and we found tons of black mold in the ceiling.
Tons of black mold everywhere. So the reason that we bought this bus initially was because we really wanted to get the 7.3 liter turbo diesel that we had in our school bus conversion. They're very reliable. If you do a quick Google search about them, they're one of the most popular diesel engines on the market still today. So that's something we loved about it. We also liked the length. It is about 23 to 24 feet long. So it still had the space that we wanted for us and our cats, which is always a consideration. If it were just us, I mean, we could live in a Sprinter van absolutely no problem. But having two animals, they love each other, but they get kind of agitated when they're on top of each other and will start like hissing and fighting. So we wanted a bit more space. We loved the windows that it had. However, the maker, is that the maker?
No, it was like...
Manufacturer?
The manufacturer, I guess. Is this company called Goshen Coach.
And we didn't do any research about Goshen Coach, so we didn't know like how much quality they put into...
Or lack thereof.
Yeah, and we found out it was lack thereof.
When we looked underneath the bus initially when I bought it, I didn't see any rust or anything, and we found out later that was because they basically wrapped the whole bus in plywood and didn't put any sheet metal. And
spray painted it black, so it just looked like, a black underside of a vehicle. Yeah.
So at that point, we had to make the decision: what do we do with this vehicle that has been put together so shoddy? Do we invest money into fixing it up, or do we just sell it and start over? And we made the decision then to invest money into it to fix it up.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the overlay footage right now, you can see that once you kind of start tearing a vehicle apart, it looks super disheveled.
We couldn't sell it like that.
Yeah, that's not really the greatest time to be like, actually, no thanks. So we decided to continue on with our investment and fix it up, which takes us to another big lessons learned and a big recommendation for you guys, that when you're coming up with your budget, you want to tack on at least 20% of an overage for unexpected things that come up, like rust damage, or in our case, the plywood that they had put in was starting to rot. So we had to replace pretty much the entire floor, and the only actual base was these metal bars. So we not only replaced the plywood, but we wrapped it in all kinds of different materials so that it wouldn't get rotted again from the bottom. Yeah. And that cost a lot of money and took a lot of time, neither of which we were initially anticipating.
Because of that, we had to hit the road on our original timeline. We actually pushed our original timeline back by a couple weeks, and we had to hit the road with the bus unfinished.
Yeah.
Which is another big lesson.
A lot of people sent us messages on Instagram when we hit the road in our most recent conversion, and we're like, why are you guys leaving with this unfinished? We had solar, which was awesome, but we didn't have any running water. We didn't even have our sink or anything hooked up. I remember our first night we pulled up to a Walmart in Wheeler, West Virginia, and I was still of the impression that, like, we can make meals in here. Like, I can figure out a way to wash dishes outside. It's going to be fine. So I made this, like, whole elaborate, which I was trying to be simple, but I made these spring rolls because I was like, they don't have to be cooked. I can just make the peanut sauce, wrap the spring rolls, bada bing, bada boom. Well, even the few dishes that incurred ended up sitting there dirty.
You made that peanut sauce
for a long time.
Exactly.
Yeah. We were at Walmart, so I couldn't just go outside and wash the dishes, and I had no way of cleaning anything inside. And to be honest, I was going a little crazy. Dirty dishes after a while will probably make any sane person a little crazy.
It was kind of a dark time. Like,
it was hard.
Yeah.
It was not easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was tough, and the funny thing about that situation is we're still living in the bus unfinished. We've now been in that one for over 2 months, I believe. And we
just got running water. Well, yeah. I have to fix the plumbing, actually.
But Chad has been working on it slowly by slowly as we've been living in it and getting it done as much as we can. And each little thing you appreciate so much because you've been living without it for so long. But that just takes me back to the same thing about, if you can, and you can't always, like, we didn't really have this option at the time, but if you can, try to wait to move into it until you're really ready. Because if you move into it when it's half finished, you might start resenting the whole lifestyle and start being like, fuck this, I just want to go back to a house so I don't have to deal with these problems, and start putting blame on a really amazing lifestyle when the blame really should just go on you for not having it finished.
Yeah.
That's just the brutal, honest truth. So we're running into another little issue with that bus. This bus, we've tried not to talk about the issues too much because it is our current reality. However, it is needing to go into the shop in 2 days, I believe. And a big contingency that you want to have planned out before you move into a bus or a van is, what are you going to do if it needs to go into a shop? We've been really lucky that with the conversion vehicles we've stayed in, we have never ran into that issue. Chad's step van conversion was in the shop, but we were able to stay in the bus, and then we haven't had to do that again. So now that our current bus is having to go into the shop, we're really lucky that we're at a place where my mom lives and we can stay with our animals. If you don't have any animals, this might not be a big thing for you, like just go rent a hotel for a couple days until your vehicle is finished. But if you have animals, it might not be that easy to rent an Airbnb or rent a hotel. So having friends and family that you can lean on that will let you stay with them while your vehicle and your home is being repaired is big
awesome.
Plus.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom and Steve. The last just really simple tip that I think we would offer is we have insurance with Geico right now, and we would highly, highly, highly recommend their roadside service. There are other companies that you can get roadside service through, like, what's that? AAA?
Yeah.
Yeah. So whatever insurance provider you have, maybe you're with a different company, I would really suggest getting roadside service because we've already used ours twice in the past 2 months, and it would have cost us hundreds and hundreds of dollars had we not just paid for that. And ours is only, I think it's like an extra $12 a month or something, so that has paid off big time. All right, guys. Well, we're going to be wrapping up this super lengthy video. I think that before we ever even got into this lifestyle, Chad and I are like, we like change. We like to mix things up. We're not afraid. We're not super attached to possessions, so we're not afraid to like sell one vehicle and start over with the next. It's not really a big deal to us. And I think that based on the comments we've received on our channel, sometimes people are like, you guys are so flaky and why don't you just stick with the vehicle? And it's because
why not try other vehicles, see what fits the best?
Yeah, we're not losing any money by just selling it. And all we're doing is gaining experience.
Yeah, exactly. All right, gang. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been informative and helpful for a lot of you. It's getting hot in here. I hope to see some comments and some questions down there that we can answer. Maybe some things that we might have missed that you know. All right, gang. Well,
should we still show them the bump? The baby bump?
The baby bump?
Yeah. If they're watching to this end of the video.
Baby bump.
Look at that.
Look at that. Look at that baby bump.
There's a stain.
It doesn't look as impressive right now.
I know. It's very impressive.
It looks kind of normal right now.
This isn't normal.
It doesn't look like a baby bump. It doesn't look very baby bumpy, baby.
Really?
Well, it's because it's probably too high, I guess. It's much lower.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's the bump, guys.
That's the bump.
Almost, well, I'm not almost 20 weeks, but I'm almost 20 weeks. So, yeah, we're excited. And, okay.
All right, gang.
See you guys later.
See you guys later. Liv fell asleep. Oh, my back hurts.